Welcome to the Insurance Marketing Masterclass, where we discuss how to market and grow your insurance agency. I'm your host, Joshua Farley. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about lead magnets and converting traffic on your website. Specifically, what qualities make a great lead magnet, and what are some ideas that you can implement on your site. All right, welcome to the show. So when one says a lead magnet, I think most people think of ebooks. And ebooks are good in some ways. They definitely have lost a lot of, the power they used to have. Everybody had an ebook, and it did better than it does now, especially with, today's market are used to consuming video. So we'll get into other things that we can do, but really, there's so much more to lead magnets than ebooks. There's so many ideas out there, and you can creatively tie these ideas back into your agency. So what makes a great lead magnet? What are the kind of the recipe here? And there's really 7 aspects that create a great lead magnet. And one is you have to solve a real problem. Your lead magnet needs to be something that the customer wants. It fits the persona. In the last episode, I used an example for homeowners insurance like a new client. And that it has to actually fit the problem of that stereotypical new buyer, and what they're looking for in buying a house. They never done this before, and you have an opportunity to provide that type of information, and that's just one example. But so that would solve a real problem. You're answering a question that really is in their head. You understand your buyer persona very well, and you're meeting that. You're identifying the need and meeting that. So it solves a real problem. The second thing is it promises one quick win. It's not, and it needs to also actually deliver that quick win. But you have to get something where it's not this drawn out process. It's very simple. They understand before they give you their email and their contact information what they're going to get, what they're going to get out of it. Once they read it, how they're going to be able to apply it. And it promises to solve that problem, quickly, one quick win. And another thing is, in all this, it demonstrates your expertise, because if you can, obviously you want to position yourself as an expert on insurance so that people will trust you and come to you for their needs. So keep that in mind. You want to incorporate that this is a demonstration of your expertise. And another key value is having high value for what you're delivering. So if it's an ebook or a checklist or whatever, we'll get into more of those options here in a minute. But it needs to be high value, and not just actually be high value, but your buyer persona needs to actually perceive it as that. You need to communicate that high value. So you can, have something high value and not toot your own horn. And, what do you get out of that? Or what do you communicate? And will they actually follow through and say, yeah, this is worth downloading, or this is worth signing up for, whatever the case may be. Another thing too, and I kind of alluded to this in the last episode, but it needs to be fairly specific. You don't want a download or whatever to be a lead magnet to be too general. If it's too general, it hits a lot of people. It may not hit their need very well, which is really why you're doing creating this in the first place. So if it's super specific or moderately specific, and really targeted in on your buyer persona, it should convert higher. So keep that in mind. And another thing is make it as quick as possible to digest. Try not to drag it out too long, unnecessarily at least, and really hone in on what you're doing. Now, there's some mediums where it may be best to make it more of a long form type thing. And not on your website in this instance, but LinkedIn has a lot of long form content, and so it's 10,000 words, I believe, is that what they qualify as a long form article. So moving on to the seventh aspect, and that is it needs to be instantly accessible. And there's two different versions in my mind of instantly accessible, and it depends on who you are. Kind of depends on who you are. I mean, so let's say you go and download, something. Let's say it's an ebook, and you download an ebook and you sign up for it. You put in your information. Is it instantly accessible on the site, or is it emailed to the user? Most people do both, but depending on what it is, it might be something that's, that you email to them instead of having it on the site. And one exception to that might be if it's a commercial insurance prospect that's converting, and they want something like a case study. You might have good reason to withhold that and kind of vet them first before you send it. But in most cases, you want things to be instantly accessible. So the next thing is I want to just kind of go over some lead magnet ideas, some things you might be able to use maybe instantly or pretty quickly. So I'm going to fire off a few things here. On my site, I have quite a few checklists, SEO checklists and things like that. Those are always a very good idea. Once again, that really taps into the quick, what you need to know. Here it is. It's in a checklist. Download it. In the same thing with a cheat sheet, a cheat sheet on how to do XYZ faster, or and another thing I really want to stress with this in any of these type of ideas, because you're probably looking at this and like, well, what am I going to use for a checklist as an insurance agency? How do I tie that into insurance? You don't really have to. That's the great thing. And yeah, I mean, you can just make it relevant to the things that people need, that's kind of related. Knowing how to do fall cleanup as a new homeowner is a valuable thing for them, and it puts them in your wheelhouse and gives you their information. Another thing might be like a toolkit. Now, this is a little more complex, but if it's a commercial prospect, you can make something like a fast employee benefit integration. So a fast, like, here's everything you need to do inside of your business to set this up and get this ready, and kind of almost like a coach would, or a consultant would come in and say, okay, here's and this is what you need to do. Another thing that you can do is provide an online calculator or spreadsheet, and you can use this as gated content. And it depends on who needs it and what your who you're targeting. But again, keep in mind that these things don't have to be insurance related calculators. They can be business oriented, to help boost your commercial, insurance prospects coming through the pipeline or the funnel. And, it really depends on how creative you get, I guess. So another thing that you could do is tutorials. We already mentioned really kind of ebooks. You can do guides on how to do something, which is that's kind of ties back into the new homeowner. That was basically a guide. You can do an infographic, educational video. Although I have to say, with an infographic, you probably wouldn't gate that content, but educational videos using like Wistia, educational audio, you could gate it if you wanted to, or keep it open and put up CTAs, calls to action for people to download other things that are relevant to what the educational material is about. Webinars, signing up for webinars, you can gain leads that way. And another one that I really thought was a good idea is event tickets. And again, keeping in mind that it doesn't have to be insurance. It could be a business seminar or a sales coaching, seminar, and you can get tickets to that and run a whole campaign around, winning these tickets and, promote it, that way. So there's a lot of different things you can do. Another thing to keep in mind though is, there's an effectiveness to using interactive lead magnets. So quizzes, calculators, contests, even like free assessments, that type of thing where people sign up for something and they're going to interact. It's going to be more than just they download it and it's done. Anyway, in the very first episode I mentioned, about trying to make insurance not be boring. And I think that a real part of that is to reach people where they're at. I was actually thinking of, what I'm going to talk about in this episode. And I came up with a quick quote. If insurance marketing is going to not be boring, it needs to fit into people's lives in a helpful way. Even if the cut of the puzzle piece that fits into their life has nothing to do with insurance. I really believe in, that's why people perceive insurance as boring. Now, don't get me wrong. We still need, blog posts on how to do this and that, but we can also attract people in based off of other things, based off of their interests. This goes back to the Yeti example. You don't see Yeti products in the Yeti videos. It's just, these are these people's lives. This is how they live. It's portraying, this visual image, and it resonates greatly with their audience. So don't limit your lead generation tactics to just insurance topics. Meet customers where they're at. So that is pretty much it for this episode. Have a great day. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and also go to blue-phoenix.net/IMM. That's IMM for Insurance Marketing Masterclass. Look forward to seeing you there. Have a great day.